Back here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by America's Navy. Let's head back out to Vegas. Pete Prisco and Jay Feely standing by. We're the Super Bowl champions. Rinse and repeat. Pete.
Jay, we just saw a bad game turn into a pretty good game, but we saw a great quarterback turn into a legendary quarterback. Pat Mahomes leads the Chiefs to a victory over the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. How do you describe Pat Mahomes now with 3 titles?
Well, he's put himself in the air of Tom Brady and Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw, some of the legendary quarterbacks in the history of the game. It's just amazing what he does, and you just know if you give him a chance at the MP, he's going to win the game. It's amazing how, he didn't play great in the first half. He threw an interception that I'm sure he'd like to have back, and another one that was almost picked. But at the end of the day, you look and he's 34 for 46, 333 yards, and another Super Bowl. I mean, it's just amazing what he does, and I think the confidence that his teammates have in him. And in those clutch moments, they just know that he's going to make the plays that needs, whether it's with his legs or through the air. The guy's just special.
When I said this week, I said he can get Tom Brady, but I also think he might put himself into that rare air of number 23 in the NBA, Mr. Michael Jordan, as the greatest athlete of all time.
I mean, to win 3 in 5 years and to be in another one that you lost and to be right there in the AFC Championship that you got knocked out of, I mean, it's just unbelievable what he's able to do. And you just think of how he changed this franchise, who hadn't been in the Super Bowl in so many years. And now, you just look at them and you say, who's going to beat them? They had a bad year. They almost didn't get into the playoffs. I mean, you're looking at them in December and you thought, hey, they might not make the playoffs. And they get in and then look out because they're just going to go to Baltimore. They're going to go to Buffalo. And they're going to win this game as well.
I know you love special teams, and there were some special teams mistakes early in this game and key plays for the San Francisco 49ers.
It was something that Tony Romo and I talked about throughout the week, that the Chiefs had a big advantage when it came to the special teams, and that certainly played out. I mean, you think of, first of all, Harrison Butker hitting that 57-yard field goal when there was a bad snap. Unbelievable job. But then you had the missed extra point by Moody, and you had the fumble on the punt return, the muff, and those are just 2 enormous plays, that had a big impact on this game.
Kyle Shanahan once again blows a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl, and all the focus will be on him not being able to win big games. I thought early he got away from Christian McCaffrey way too many times. They should have been pounding the football. What do you think now when you think of Kyle Shanahan?
I think when he looks back, he'll want to run the ball more again, which we've heard that before in the Patriots game when they lost to them in Atlanta. But he did enough to get his team right there. I mean, they got a 4th and 1 play to win the Super Bowl. They get a stop on that play, game's over. They win. You have a lead in overtime. You're not able to get a stop. That's not on him. That's on the defense. And, it's just going to be frustrating for him. But this is the team, I think, that's set up for success in the future. Obviously, they have a young Brock Purdy, who's playing with the best of all of them. Didn't at all look like a young guy who shouldn't have been in this game. He handled himself really well, threw some excellent balls. But this one's going to hurt because it's there. It was there for them to win, and they couldn't do it.
We talk about the greatness of Pat Mahomes and where he might go. What about Andy Reid? Where does this put him in terms of the greats in NFL history?
Well, I think when you put in what he did with Philadelphia as well, those 4 straight NFC championships and getting to the Super Bowl there as well, I think he's brought himself in the upper echelon of those top 3-4 coaches in NFL history, which is just amazing for him.
I was surprised that both teams didn't run the ball better. We saw the 49ers come in giving up 5.6 per rush on the ground in 2 playoff games, and the Chiefs have struggled with the run all year. That, to me, was the biggest surprise of the early part of the game.
I think the 49ers did a really good job of saying, hey, we're not going to let you get to the edges. We may not get home, but we're going to set. And I saw Bosa hit Travis Kelce a number of times and stay on him and not let him get. And that's why Travis wasn't getting a lot of receptions early in that game in the first half. But they were also setting the edges really well. That was a focus for them. Okay, if you can beat us inside where Chris Jones is, or I'm sorry, if you can beat us inside, then okay, better for you. But they weren't able to do that.
When you look back on this Chiefs team compared to some of the other Chiefs teams, we're going to look back on this and say, yeah, they were better on defense, but they really struggled on offense, which put even more on number 15.
Yeah, when you think about the struggles catching the ball and all the drops throughout the season and the frustration that you saw at times from Travis Kelce, it just goes to the greatness of Patrick Mahomes because he didn't waver. I think back to Tom Brady. There's a lot of times we didn't think the Patriots were great enough, to win in some of those years, but he didn't have great receivers, and they did it, and they won Super Bowls, and they made enough plays, and that's what Pat does. When he has to make plays, he makes those plays, and they win Super Bowls.
Well, Tom Brady has been served notice by Patrick Mahomes, and Michael Jordan, you've been served notice as well. The guy is legendary. He showed it out here once again. Back to you guys in the studio.
Pete, Jay, thank you. And speaking of another great NBA player, get this. Patrick Mahomes, second player in NFL, NBA, NHL, and MLB history to win 3 championship round MVPs before the age of 29. 15 playoff wins in a 6-year span. That's more than Tom Brady did in 2016 to 2021 and 2015 to 2020. I mean, look, Tom Brady's the GOAT. Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowl titles, but Patrick Mahomes quickly chasing him. 3rd Super Bowl title in 5 years for 1-5, matching the number of playoff wins he's got in a 6-year span. Much more from Vegas.
Wrote this team off in that moment. Deuce, how do they navigate the storm this season and again emerge this time in a different way?
Yeah, we've talked about it all so long, how they've been able to reinvent themselves, and they leaned on the defense, and I'd been saying it all year long. Like, it's crazy to say, but the Chiefs team was led by its defense, and that's what happened throughout this year. While this offense came to the party, we were wondering when it would happen. Well, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce, they got it together at the right time. They got hot on that playoff run. They started versus the Miami Dolphins in the wild card round, then against the Buffalo Bills in the division round. Then they went to Baltimore and got it together in the first half, even though they struggled in the second half. And then all consummated with Patrick Mahomes in overtime, couple scampers, couple big throws to win the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. So started with their defense as the offense came along. We all kind of figured, DK, we kept saying it all season long. I trust Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They didn't let us down.
I didn't trust them. This was the year they weren't going to get it done.
I appreciate that candor because a lot of people said that.
Trust me, if there was video, you can go back and you can point it out. So I'm not going to try to hide it out there because they did look sloppy.
Yeah,
they did look like the offense was missing a wide receiver. It did look like Travis Kelce was in a funk for 3 or 4 games. And, you know, there was a lot of stuff about distraction talk. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but they weren't on the same page. And then I think the thing that's different about this team is that a lot of teams during the regular season, you know this, dudes, like you get a 2-game losing streak or you start facing adversity, all of a sudden there's a little panic.
Correct.
You know, and you start trying to force things or you try to bench guys and coaches start doing things that are uncharacteristic of who they are. Not with this team.
Yeah.
They just stay cool, calm, and collected. You know, as a Dolphins fan, you're thinking, oh, they have to get home field advantage. They got to stay in the warm weather. Buffalo, they got to get home field advantage so they can have Buffalo. They can have that environment. Kansas City's like, just give us a seat at the table.
Man.
And sure enough, that's all they got was a seat at the table, and they end up being on top of the. It's an unbelievable to watch.
Well, still in the midst of their personal storm are these 49ers. After winning their first 5 Super Bowl appearances, guys, last 3, 12-19, and this one, they have not been able to get over that hump. From a personnel standpoint, they don't come much more complete on a roster, DK. So what is, other than Patrick Mahomes, the limiting factor of this team right now preventing them from seeing that Super Bowl?
They were a favorite for a reason. They have a better roster from 1 to 53. They have more edges. They have at each position. They don't have it at 1 in quarterback, and they probably didn't have it at running back and a couple others. But I think it is a mental hurdle. I mean, I think we forget how hard it is, and we've been so lucky to watch the Patriots and now the Chiefs kind of run through it and make it look easy. But a lot of it is that final hurdle is the hardest, and I think Kyle Shanahan's finding out that the hard way because he's been there multiple times now and just can't punch through. It takes a while to learn how to manage those late game situations, to make those critical calls that we haven't seen him been able to get over, and it's only going to get harder now for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and the front office, and now the question marks around Brock Purdy will probably come, and they'll start coming for everybody else. And then because we've seen Super Bowl hangovers before from the losers almost more than the winners, because do they tweak? Do they get a little panicky and start to do things that maybe they wouldn't? So I think it is mental at this point for the 49ers, and again, they're going to try to run it back, but they're going to have question marks and some soul searching. It's going to be a long offseason.
DK and Moose, we asked before this game, if not this year for the 49ers, then when? To your point, Moose, like on paper, this is one of the most complete rosters we've seen in a long time, except for at the quarterback position. I'm a big fan of Brock Purdy. let's go down history lane, right? Let's not forget when the Denver Broncos were 13-3 with Jake Plummer at quarterback. What did they do the next year, DK? They took Jay Cutler in the draft, right? They were 7-4. They benched Jay Cutler. Like Shanahan tree, it'll be interesting to see because I was on that 17 team, and I know that he wanted Kirk Cousins then, but they traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. We went 6-0 down the stretch. Then they paid Garoppolo. Kirk Cousins is a free agent. Is that something that he maybe looks at?
Interesting.
Because we talked about Kyle Shanahan in this system, right? He's kind of a defector when it comes to the NFL. Most Super Bowl winning teams have superstar quarterbacks. Not saying Brock Purdy can't be a superstar, but maybe does he try to go that route to get them over the hump?
To point something else out too. You got to have luck sometimes.
You do.
And not luck like bouncing the ball. What about injuries?
Yeah.
Greenlaw lost with the Achilles early in the game. Devastating. Kittle goes out. Debo goes out.
Yep.
They had injuries all over the place. Yep. Sometimes it's just you get the luck of the draw.
And you're
like
playing
we're here
Mahomes.
in Vegas. But yeah, and you're playing Mahomes. Right? And you can try. I mean, they had their opportunities. I want to blame it on injuries by any any way you look at it. But those were tough injuries to overcome for the 49ers.
I would also like to take a moment to thank our team that helped us navigate the storms. Sometimes this week, literally. The hard-working women and men on our CBS Sports crew doing the best work we could ever ask for. This right here, merely the tip of the iceberg, and what makes us great is all that you do not see behind the scenes. So a big thank you to our team on CBS Sports HQ, but we're not done just yet. Plenty more coverage coming.
Call, and what a call on CBS. This Super Bowl recap is presented by Oikos. Snack strong with protein-packed options from Oikos. As we get back out to Allegiant Stadium, welcoming two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and CBS Sports senior writer Pete Prisco. B-Mac, you won 2 Super Bowls. What was it like watching the Chiefs win back-to-back titles?
It brought me down to memory lane. I never won back-to-back, but winning, 2 is an unbelievable experience, and seeing the Chiefs, cap off another Super Bowl title is unbelievable. They're in the midst of a dynasty. I know we talked about this potential dynasty or not throughout the week leading up to this ball game, but Pete, winning tonight solidifies the Chiefs with Pat Mahomes under Andy Reid. They're currently a dynasty.
Well, it does a lot more than that. It solidifies Pat Mahomes as on his way to becoming the greatest NFL quarterback, greatest football player, and maybe even the greatest athlete we've ever seen. That's how good he is. This is not a good Chiefs team. It really isn't. It struggled at times. I think this game was a microcosm of the entire season. Started slow, didn't know what they were doing offensively, finally got it cranked up, and you look up and he's got over 300 yards passing and the game-winning drive to a touchdown. So this, to me, was kind of indicative of the entire season for the Chiefs. This was not one of their better teams. Good defense for sure, but not the same offense.
And Pete, Hakeem, that's the scary part, because this was, compared to some of the teams we've seen in years past, this was an okay team when you factor in the championship standard that we've seen from Pat Mahomes, his offense. The last 2 Super Bowls, I feel like they were not the best team. They weren't the more talented team last year. They found a way. And clearly, in this matchup tonight, San Francisco was the most talented roster in the NFL when healthy. They were the most talented team in tonight's matchup, and guess what? The Chiefs, they found a way.
Well, and you know what, men? They flipped the switch. They flipped the script, right? They ended the regular season 3-3. There were questions about what this team could be, but then they proved it in the playoffs. They beat Miami. They go to Buffalo and beat the Bills. They go to Baltimore and beat the MVP Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Then here we are in the Super Bowl, and they beat arguably the best team all season aside from the Ravens. This is an incredible accomplishment for Kansas City to do what they did, considering the way they ended the regular season. B-Mac, this is a lot to do with coaching, with Andy Reid, with Steve Spagnuolo, the way they ran this team end of year.
This was the best coaching performance by Andy Reid throughout his championship tenure in Kansas City. Based on everything that Hakeem just gave us when you talk about the gauntlet in the playoffs. Beating Tua Tagovailoa, beating Josh Allen, beating Lamar Jackson, beating Brock Purdy led with one of the best talented rosters in the National Football League, and finding a way to do so. I mean, Andy Reid, his staff, Steve Spagnuolo, once again, I understand we love to talk about the quarterbacks, we love to talk about the offensive structure and the scheme, but Steve Spagnuolo has been in his bag. Once again, when the offense were not getting things going, a bit stagnant to say the least, guess who they relied on? Special teams and Steve Spagnuolo. And as you mentioned, that was like their calling card the entire year, and that's how they started the season, and lo and behold, that's how they finished.
You know, we talk about where Patrick Mahomes is going in terms of the pecking order of the greats of all time.
Yep.
Where's Andy Reid going, and where is he right now? I mean, this guy has proved to be, you know, all the failures that he had in Philadelphia when he couldn't win the big one, they all questioned him whether he could do the right things in the postseason, and now here he is with 3 titles. He's on his way to putting himself into the elite of NFL coaches. And think about this. If he were to coach 5 more years and average 12 wins per season, that counts
Which
the
is
postseason,
doable.
which is doable, he would become the greatest, winningest coach of all time by passing Don Shula, and he obviously would have a title or 2 more on that.
Well, he's the 5th head coach with 3 or more Super Bowl wins. And we always talk about you give him time to prepare. There's nobody better than Andy Reid with time to prepare. Off of a bye or an extra week, 31-7 now is his record. That's best among head coaches since 1990. Pete, when you take a look at what happened in the first half with Travis Kelce, 1 catch, 1 target, 1 yard, and the difference in the second half, what was the difference? It was like the Chiefs were playing some okie dokie, like they were like, hey, we're gonna make you forget about Travis Kelce. It was wild, the change of production from the first half to the second half.
Well, I think what happened was early in the game, they set out and the 49ers said, we're not letting him beat us. And they would have Bosa hit him at the line of scrimmage. They would have him in some man-to-man situations with the safety over the top. On the touchdown.
Chào tất cả các bạn quay trở lại với kênh YouTube của mình. Video ngày hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn tô một sản phẩm ong đốt. Bây giờ chúng ta bắt đầu nào.
Nhau rất xưa mình sẽ đi chọn màu để tô cho trình mình các bạn theo dõi quá trình tô màu nhé. Các bạn nha. Mèo nó bé làm sao đấy. Chị Lan đi làm. Bây giờ mình sẽ tiếp tục đi tô màu này các bạn. Chị Lan đi làm công ty. Nó có làm nhà đây. Đó nè, nhìn nè, mày gầy mẹ mày gầy vừa nó không mày tẩy nó tẩy đủ ra, gầy cái xả mạnh cái bẹt vào mỏ ui, đấy là cái này là từ 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 bắt đầu vô vừa rồi tẩy. Từ từ nó sâu vào cho nó đầu nhọn cho nó to là cho nó gọt nhọn lắm luôn, cột vừa được gọt nhọn quá rồi gãy mẹ hay gì. Như vậy là mình đã hoàn thành xong bức tranh của mình các bạn ạ. Các bạn thấy đẹp thì hãy cho mình xin like và đăng ký kênh của mình nhé. Các bạn rất là nhiệt tình với các bạn.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn đã quay trở lại với kênh YouTube của mình. Video ngày hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn tô màu sản phẩm ong tìm mặt. Bây giờ chúng ta bắt đầu nào.
Đầu tiên mình sẽ đi chọn màu để tô cho bức tranh mình các bạn ạ. Các bạn theo dõi quá trình mình đi tô màu nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn. Mình đi gọt mỏ đó các bạn ạ.
cái công ty thôi. Nếu nó nặng quá thì bảo những cái máy nào nó khỏe thì nó tải, có những máy vẫn không tải được mà.
Nó không phải là
Máy nào khỏe.
máy nó khỏe nhưng mà mỗi người làm việc chứ ví dụ như mẹ dùng máy tính ta giao cho mẹ việc tải như vậy, làm video thì mẹ chỉ làm việc đấy, chứ máy người ta làm việc khác tải nào mỗi người không tùy. Cái
Máy ông Tuấn đấy hay tải nặng lắm.
Xem cái máy 2 đấy tải xong chưa, giờ chia đôi cái ra đi để xem là ở cái phần download đó, nó ở tải về phần download nó ấn mở ra.
Như vậy là mình đã hoàn thành xong tác phẩm tô màu của mình các bạn ạ. Các bạn thấy đẹp thì hãy cho mình xin lượt like, lượt đăng ký kênh để ủng hộ mình nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn rất là nhiều. Tạm biệt các bạn.